Hello, everyone. Happy December 8th to you. As I mentioned last week, I'm going to be reading a story to you. It's a book by Max Lucado. And Max imagines the spiritual realm of from conception to the birth of Christ, and how the enemy of our souls, of course, does not want us to find salvation through Christ. And what this book imagines, Cosmic Christmas, it imagines the attempts that the enemy made to keep the Christ child from being born. It impacted me the first time I read it, because we are in a spiritual war, and we know that. Those of us who are followers of Christ know that very well. And the fact that the enemy has been trying to thwart the plan of God since before Jesus was even born, and he continues to try to thwart. It's an amazing. It's a pretty amazing thing to think about. It's very intriguing. So it's a long book. It's relatively long, but it would take me probably an hour and a half to read the entire thing. Well, an hour-ish. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it in three parts. I'm going to tell you the story today, and then the 22nd, or the 15th and the 22nd. So I hope you're as intrigued with this as I was. Gabriel, just the sound of my king's voice stirred my heart. My lord, you have served the kingdom well. You are a noble messenger. Never have you flinched in duty. Never have you flagged in zeal. I bowed my head, basking in the words. Whatever you ask, I'll do 1,000 times over, my king, I promised. Of that I have no doubt, my dear messenger. His voice assumed a solemnity I had never heard him use. But your greatest work lies ahead of you. Your next assignment is to carry a gift to the earth. Behold, I lifted my eyes to see a necklace, a clear vial on a golden chain dangling from his extended hand. My father spoke earnestly. Though empty, this vial will soon contain my greatest gift. Place it around your neck. I was about to take it when a raspy voice interrupted me. And what treasure will you send to earth this time? My back stiffened at the irreverent tone, and my stomach turned at the sudden stench. Such foul odor could only come from one being. I drew my sword and turned to do battle with Lucifer. The Father's hand on my shoulder stopped me. Worry not, Gabriel. He can do no harm. I stepped back and stared at God's enemy. He was completely covered. A black cassock hung over his skeletal frame, hiding his body and arms and hooding his face. The feet, protruding from beneath the robe, were thrice toed and clawed. The skin on his hands was like that of a snake. Talons extended from his fingers. He pulled the cape further over his face as a shield against the light, but the brightness still pained him. Seeking relief, he turned to me. I caught a glimpse of a skullish face within the cowl. What are you staring at, Gabriel? He sneered. Are you that glad to see me? I had no words for this fallen angel. Both what I saw and what I remembered left me speechless. I remembered him before the rebellion, poised proudly at the vanguard of our force, wings wide, holding forth a radiant sword. He had inspired us to do the same. Who could refuse him? The sight of his velvet hair and coal-black eyes had far outstripped the beauty of any celestial being. Any being, of course, except our Creator. No one compared Lucifer to God, except Lucifer. How he came to think he was worthy of the same worship of God, only God knows. All I knew is that I had not seen Satan since the rebellion, and what I saw now repulsed me. I searched for just a hint of his former splendor, but found none. Oh, your news must be urgent, spat Satan to God, still unable to bear the light. My father's response was a pronouncement. The time has come for the second gift. The frame beneath the cape bounced stiffly as Lucifer chuckled. The second gift, eh? I hope it works better than the first. You're disappointed with the first? Asked the father. Oh, quite the contrary. I'm delighted with it. Lifted a bony finger, he spelled out one word in the air. CHOICE. You gave Adam his choice, Satan scoffed. And what a choice he made. He chose me. Ever since the fruit was plucked from the tree in the garden, I've held your children captive. They fell fast, hard. They're mine. You have failed. You speak so confidently, replied the father, astounding me with his patience. Lucifer stepped forward, his cloak dragging behind him. Of course, I thwart everything you do. You soften hearts, I harden them. You teach truth, I shadow it. You offer joy, I steal it. He pivoted and paraded around the room, boasting of his deeds. The betrayal of Joseph by his brothers, I did that. Moses banished to the desert after killing the Egyptian, I did that. David watching Bathsheba bathe, that was me. You must admit, my work has been crafty. Crafty? Perhaps. But effective? No. I know what you do even before you do it. I used the betrayal of Joseph to deliver my people from famine. Your banishment of Moses became his wilderness training. And yes, David did commit adultery with Bathsheba, but he repented of his sin. And thousands have been inspired by his example and found what he found, unending grace. Your deceptions have only served as platforms for my mercy. You are still my servant, Satan. When will you learn? Your feeble attempts to disturb my work only enable my work. Every act you intended for evil, I have used for good. Satan began to growl, a throaty, guttural, angry growl. Softly at first, then louder, until the room was filled with a roar that must have quaked the foundations of hell. But the king was not bothered. Feeling ill, Lucifer lurked around the room, breathing loudly, searching for words to say and a shadow from which to say them. He finally found the words, but not the shadow. Show me, O King of Light. Show me one person on earth who always does right and obeys your will. Dare you ask? You know there need to be only one perfect person, one sinless one to die for the sins of the others. I know your plans, and you have failed. No Messiah will come from your people. There is none that is sinless, not one. He turned his back to the desk and began naming the children. Not Moses, not Abraham, not Lot, not Rebekah, not Elijah. The father stood up from his throne, releasing a wave of holy light so intense that Lucifer staggered backward and fell. Those are my children, you mock, God's voice boomed. You think you know much, fallen angel, but you know so little. Your mind dwells on the valley of self. Your eyes see no further than your own needs. The king walked over and reached for the book. He turned it toward Lucifer and commanded, Come, deceiver, read the name of the one who will call your bluff. Read the name of the one who will storm your gates. Satan rose slowly off his haunches. Like a wary wolf, he walked a wide circle toward the desk until he stood before the volume and read the word, Emmanuel. Emmanuel? He muttered to himself, then spoke in a tone of disbelief. God with us? For the first time, the hooded head turned squarely toward the face of the Father. No, not even you would do that. Not even you would go so far. You've never believed me, Satan. But Emmanuel, the plan is bizarre. You don't know what it's like on earth. You don't know how dark I've made it. It's putrid. It's evil. It's mine, proclaimed the king. And I will reclaim what is mine. I will become flesh. I will feel what my creatures feel. I will see what they see. But what of their sin? I will bring mercy. What of their death? I will give life. Satan stood speechless. God spoke. I love my children. Love does not take away the beloved's freedom, but love takes away fear. And Emmanuel will leave behind a tribe of fearless children. They will not fear you or your hell. Satan stepped back at the thought. His retort was childish. They will too. I will take away all sin. I will take away death. Without sin and without death, you have no power. Round and around in a circle, Satan paced, clenching and unclenching his wiry fingers. When he finally stopped, he asked a question that even I was thinking. Why? Why would you do this? The Father's voice was deep and soft. Because I love them. The two stood facing each other. Neither spoke. The extremes of the universe were before me. God robed in light, each thread glowing. Satan canopied in evil. The very fabric of his robe seemed to crawl. Peace contrasting with panic. Wisdom confronting foolishness. One able to rescue, the one anxious to condemn. I have reflected much on what happened next. Though I have relived the moment countless times, I'm as stunned as I was at the first. Never in my wildest thoughts did I think my God would do what he did. Had he demanded Satan's departure, who would have questioned? Had he taken Satan's life, who would have grieved? Had he called me to attack, I would have been willing. But God did none of these. From the circle of light came his extended hand. From his throne came an honest invitation. Will you surrender? Will you return to me? I do not know the thoughts of Satan, but I believe that for a fleeting second, the evil heart softened. The head cocked slightly, as if amazed that such an offer would be made. Then it yanked itself erect. When will we battle? He challenged. The Father sighed at the dark angel's resistance. On a hill called Calvary. If you make it that far, Satan smirked, spinning and marching out of the entryway. I watched as his spiny wings extended, and he soared into the heavenlies. The Father stood motionless for a moment. Then he turned back to the book. Opening to the final chapter, he slowly read words I had never heard. No sentences, just words, saying each, then pausing. Jesus, nail, cross, blood, tomb, life. He motioned toward me, and I responded, kneeling again before him. Handing me the necklace, he explained, this vial will contain the essence of myself, a seed to be placed in the womb of a young girl. Her name is Mary. She lives among my chosen people. The fruit of the seed is the Son of God. Take it to her. But how will I know her? I asked. Don't worry, you will. I could not comprehend God's plan, but my understanding was not essential. My obedience was. I lowered my head, and he draped the chain around my neck. Amazingly, the vial was no longer empty. It glowed with light. Jesus, tell her to call my son Jesus. And that is the first of 3 parts of this book I love, and I read it every Christmas, Cosmic Christmas. I do hope you'll come back next week to see how the battle continues. And again, this comes from one man's imagination, but I do believe that it was inspired by God. And whether it is certainly something, because we do learn about the spiritual realm and the battle that goes on in the spiritual realm. So this is not outside of the realm of possibility based on what we know from the Bible. And so I do hope you come back next week. It's intriguing, and I'll see you then. Have a great week. Bye.